The year was somewhere in the early 8th century. The city of Basra, in southern Iraq, was a place of contrasts, a thriving port where merchants from India, Persia, and Arabia traded spices, silks, and pearls. Yet also a city scarred by poverty, drought, and political unrest. In a small mud-brick home on the edge of this bustling city, a poor couple awaited the birth of their fourth daughter. They had nothing, no wealth, no servants, not even a single lamp to light the house that night. But their hearts carried faith. That night, something extraordinary happened. It is said that after the birth, the father saw a vision in his dream, the Prophet Muhammad telling him, "Your daughter is beloved by the Lord. She will lead many to him." When he awoke, the poor man's eyes filled with tears. But his joy was soon met with the reality of their hardship. They couldn't even afford a drop of oil to light a lamp to welcome their child into the world. So he turned to his wife and said, "She has come into darkness, but perhaps she will be the one to light the world." They named her Rabia, meaning the fourth, as she was the fourth daughter, but also a name that would soon become a lantern in the history of spirituality. But joy was short-lived. Basra was hit by famine and drought. Poverty tightened its grip on the family, and one by one, tragedy visited their home. Her father died first, worn down by years of struggle. Her mother soon followed, leaving Rabia an orphan, a young girl with no family, no money, and no shelter. In those days, orphans were easy prey for the cruel and the greedy. One night, as she walked alone in the dusty streets, she was captured by a group of men. They dragged her to the slave market. The bids began. A wealthy man purchased her, not because she was strong, but because he thought a frail, quiet girl would be easy to control. He took her to his home and put her to work, grinding flour, fetching water, cleaning from dawn to night. But in the silence of the night, when the world slept, something happened. Slavery and the awakening of the soul. The master who bought Rabia was a man of means, but his heart was far from mercy. Her days began before sunrise, grinding grain, carrying heavy jars of water, scrubbing floors until her hands cracked. She ate last, slept little, and spoke almost never. But what her master could not see was that Rabia's nights were not for rest, they were for God. When the household fell silent and the lamps went out, she would rise quietly from her thin mat, wash herself, and face the direction of Mecca. There, in the stillness of the night, she would speak to her Creator in whispers. "O my Lord, you know my heart. My body is in chains, but my soul is yours alone." It is said that her prayers were so deep, so filled with love, that even the angels would pause to listen. One night, her master woke unexpectedly. As he walked past the courtyard, he saw something that froze him in place. Rabia was in sajda, her forehead pressed to the ground, and above her a soft light hovered in the air, glowing gently like the moon. He stood there in awe, unsure if he was dreaming. He heard her say, "O Allah, you know I desire nothing but you. If I were free, I would spend my days and nights in your worship alone." Her master's heart trembled. By morning, he called her before him and said, "From this day you are free. I dare not hold in bondage one who is so beloved to God." Rabia left his house with nothing, no gold, no clothes beyond what she wore, no home to go to. But in her heart, she carried something greater than wealth, freedom to love God without limits. She turned her back on the city and walked into the desert, choosing a life the world could not understand, a life for God alone. Rabia Basri was now free, but freedom meant something different to her than it did to others. Most people, when freed from slavery, long for comfort, a warm home, a family, and rest after years of hardship. Rabia, however, walked in the opposite direction. She left the master's house without looking back. In her hands, nothing but a wooden staff. In her heart, nothing but the remembrance of Allah. The streets of Basra bustled with traders, poets, and scholars, but she did not linger. She passed the gold sellers, the spice merchants, the silk weavers. None of it tempted her. She made her way to the outskirts of the city, where the air was still and the ground bare. There, she found an abandoned hut made of clay and straw. It had no door, no furniture, and no comfort, but to Rabia it was perfect. It was a place where she could be alone with her Lord. From that day forward, her life became one long prayer. She fasted during the day, breaking her fast only with a few morsels of bread or dates, sometimes only water. At night, she would stand in prayer for hours, her body swaying gently as she recited verses of the Quran, her eyes wet with tears. Her philosophy of worship. In that quiet hut, Rabia began shaping the thoughts that would make her one of the greatest voices of spiritual purity. People in Basra, even scholars, often worshipped with an eye on reward, the gardens of paradise, the rivers of milk and honey. Others prayed out of fear, to escape the fire of hell. But Rabia, she wanted neither of those as her motivation. One of her most famous prayers came from these nights. O Allah, if I worship you out of fear of hell, burn me in it. If I worship you out of hope for paradise, deny it to me. But if I worship you for your sake alone, then do not withhold from me the beauty of your face. This way of thinking shook even the greatest scholars. It was pure ishq-i ilahi, divine love, a worship free of bargaining. Turning down the world. It didn't take long for her reputation to spread. Traders who once saw her walking barefoot as a slave now whispered, "This is the woman who prays until dawn." Students of religion came to ask her questions. Wealthy women came offering her fine clothes. Men, even pious ones, came seeking her hand in marriage. But Rabia's answer was always the same. I have no space in my heart for any beloved but Allah. I am already promised. My covenant is with him. Once, a rich man sent her a purse of gold, saying, "You live so simply. This will make life easier for you." Rabia returned it with a note. "You care for my comfort in this world, but I care for my comfort in the next. Keep your gold." Living in solitude. Days turned into years. Rabia's hut became a place of both solitude and pilgrimage, not for worldly travelers, but for those seeking truth. They would knock softly on her open doorway, hoping to hear a word from her lips. One of them was Hassan al-Basri, the famous scholar and saint. When he entered her hut, he was shocked by its emptiness. No bed, no table, no lamp. "Why do you not ask for a cushion, or a blanket, or something to ease your living?" he asked. Rabia smiled gently. "Hassan, this world is only a bridge. When you cross a bridge, do you build a house upon it? I am merely passing through." Her words struck Hassan so deeply that he left in silence, pondering the depth of her detachment. Her miracles and signs. Though she never sought fame, stories began to spread about the wonders surrounding her. Some said that when she prayed, a light would fill the hut. Others claimed that animals, even wild ones, would come near her without fear. But Rabia dismissed such tales. "Do not look at the miracles of the saints," she would say. "Look at the Lord who grants them." In those years, she reached a state where her love for Allah was like a fire, consuming all else. When people asked her what she desired, she would answer, "I desire nothing but His nearness. If I had all of paradise in my hand, I would throw it away if it distracted me from Him." Encounters with scholars and saints. Rabia Basri's fame reached not only the markets of Basra but also the circles of the most renowned scholars and mystics of her age. It was unusual for a woman to be recognized in such gatherings, Yet Rabia was no ordinary woman. Her knowledge came not from the pages of books, but from the depths of her heart, illuminated by constant remembrance of Allah. Meeting Hassan al-Basri again. One of the most well-known exchanges occurred with Hassan al-Basri, the celebrated preacher and ascetic. He once visited her, hoping to discuss matters of worship and spirituality. When he entered, Rabia was sitting with her head bowed, lost in dhikr, remembrance of Allah. He greeted her with respect, and she returned the greeting softly. Hassan began, "O Rabia, how do you see the state of this world?" She lifted her gaze briefly, her eyes calm yet piercing. "Hassan, I see this world as a ship, and we are all passengers. The ship is moving toward its port, but the passengers are playing with pebbles on its deck." Her words left him silent. He had preached about detachment for years, but in one sentence, she had captured the essence of it. The challenge of worship. In another meeting, Hassan said to her, "Rabia, I have never stopped worshipping Allah with fear of His punishment and hope for His mercy." She smiled faintly. "Hassan, this is the work of merchants. They fear loss and hope for profit. Do you not love Allah enough to worship Him for His sake alone, without bargaining for reward or safety?" Hassan was stunned. Later, he would say to his students, "All my life I thought I was ahead of many in worship, until I met Rabia. She showed me that love is greater than fear, and sincerity is greater than hope for gain." The lamp of night. One evening, a group of scholars came to visit her, hoping to benefit from her wisdom. It was dark, and her small hut had no lamp. One of them said, "Shall we bring a lamp so we may see each other?" Rabia replied, "Those who know Allah see by the light of His guidance. What need have we for a lamp?" In that moment, a strange light filled the room, not from any flame, but from an unseen source. The scholars were awed. But Rabia simply continued speaking about patience, humility, and love for Allah, as if nothing extraordinary had happened. Turning the tables on a question. A famous jurist once tried to test her. He said, "Rabia, how do you know you are accepted by Allah?" She replied, "When I see myself pleasing Him without caring for the world's acceptance, I know I am accepted. And you, how do you know you are accepted?" The jurist hesitated, then lowered his head. Her answer had pierced him more than he had expected. Her place among the saints. Men of great knowledge would leave her presence feeling like students before a master. Yet Rabia never saw herself as a teacher. She would often say, "I am only a servant at the gate of my Lord. If people knock on my door, I simply point them toward His." Her humility was so deep that even when people praised her as the crown of saints, she would answer, "If you truly knew me, you would not praise me. All good you see in me is from Him, and all fault is my own." Tests of the heart. Rabia Basri's life was not one of ease. Even though her name was spoken with reverence in the gatherings of saints, her daily existence was one of constant trial. She possessed almost nothing, and that was by choice. Her home was a small, crumbling hut on the edge of Basra. The walls were bare, the floor made of hardened earth. In one corner lay a mat made from palm fibers, in the other, a clay jar for water. There was no cushion, no ornament, no door lock. She often said, "A heart filled with the love of Allah cannot be filled with the weight of possessions." The long sickness. Once, she fell gravely ill. 4 days, she could neither rise nor fetch water for herself. Friends and neighbors urged her, "Rabia, let us bring a doctor, or at least some medicine." She gently refused. "My sickness is from Allah, and I will not seek cure without His leave. If He wills my health, He will restore it without a doctor's hand." and if he wills my meeting with him, then what greater cure is there? They were moved to tears. For her, pain was not a reason to complain, it was an invitation to surrender. The Storm and the Night Prayer. One winter night, a fierce storm struck Basra. The wind howled, and rain seeped through the roof of her hut. The cold was so bitter that the few scraps of cloth she owned could not keep her warm. Yet when the time for Tahajjud, the late-night prayer, came, she rose from her mat and stood before Allah. Her body trembled from the cold, but her voice was steady. "O Allah, you know that the cold of this night is nothing to me, if only I can feel the warmth of your nearness." When she prostrated, the earth beneath her was damp, but she did not rise until the prayer was complete. Misunderstood by the people. Not everyone admired her way of life. Some accused her of showing off her piety. Others whispered that she was mad for refusing gifts and wealth. Once, a wealthy woman came to her with a purse of gold. "Rabia, please take this. You can help the poor with it, if you will not use it for yourself." Rabia shook her head. "The one who feeds me without gold will feed them as well. I will not become a door between them and his provision." The woman left offended, unable to understand that Rabia's refusal was not pride, it was trust. Loneliness as a companion. Years passed, and Rabia never married. Many proposed, including men of learning and piety. Her answer was always the same. "I have no room in my heart for both a husband and my beloved. I am already wed to his remembrance." Her solitude was not emptiness, it was filled with the constant presence of Allah. She would say, "When the world sleeps, I sit alone with him. That is my joy, my family, my life." A night of weeping. One night, a neighbor heard sobbing from Rabia's hut and rushed to see if she was in pain. Peering through the doorway, she saw Rabia kneeling, her forehead touching the ground. Through her tears, Rabia whispered, "O Allah, if I worship you for fear of hell, burn me in hell. If I worship you for hope of paradise, deny me paradise. But if I worship you for your sake alone, then withhold not from me your eternal beauty." The neighbor left, shaken. She realized that Rabia's worship was not a transaction, it was pure love. The flame of pure love. There is perhaps no image more closely tied to the name of Rabia al-Basri than the one that would shock the people of Basra and echo through centuries. A torch in one hand, a bucket of water in the other. The day of the torch and water. One bright morning, Rabia walked through the bustling streets of Basra. Children ran barefoot between the market stalls, merchants shouted their prices, and scholars debated under shaded porches. But Rabia moved with purpose. In her right hand, she carried a burning torch, in her left, a bucket filled with water. People stopped and stared. "Rabia, what are you doing?" someone called. She replied, her voice calm yet filled with urgency. "With this fire, I will burn down paradise. With this water, I will extinguish the flames of hell, so that none may worship Allah for fear of punishment or hope of reward, but only for His sake alone." Her words struck the crowd like lightning. Some were speechless, others wept. The image of her walking away, torch flickering, water sloshing, would remain burned in their memories. A love without conditions. For Rabia, love of Allah was not a bargain. She could not bear the thought of worship that was motivated by personal gain. Once, a man asked her, "Rabia, do you love Allah?" She answered, "Yes, more than my soul." He pressed, "Do you fear him?" She smiled faintly. "No. My love for him leaves no room for fear. Fear is for those who do not yet know him." The poem of the two loves. On another night, as she prayed in solitude, These words flowed from her heart. I have two loves, one for you alone, and one because you are worthy of being loved. The first carries me to your remembrance, where nothing else matters. The second lifts the veil, so that I may behold you. There is no praise for me in either, but all praise belongs to you. Her companions would later write these words down, and they would be recited in Sufi gatherings for centuries. The refusal of a king. The fame of Rabia's devotion spread so far that even kings heard of her. One day, the ruler of Basra sent her a message. Come to my court, and I will grant you anything you desire. Rabia sent back a simple reply. I have left the court of kings to serve the King of Kings. Why should I trade his nearness for your gold? The king never asked again. Love in every breath. Her love for Allah was not something she put on display. It was in every breath, every movement, every silence. Those who spent time with her said they could feel it, like warmth from a hidden fire. She once told a visitor, "When I say Allah, my tongue tastes sweetness. When I forget him, my heart turns dry. I cannot live even a moment without him, and that is my true sustenance." Wisdom for the ages. As Rabia al-Basri grew older, her days became quieter, but her influence deepened. Her home, a humble clay-walled room with a mat on the floor, became a place where seekers of truth came not for charity, nor for miracles, but for clarity of the soul. The visitors. They came in all forms. A merchants weighed down by gold. A scholars with scrolls tucked under their arms. A young women weary of the world's false promises. And to each, Rabia spoke differently, yet always with the same thread: purify your intention, and everything will fall into place. One merchant once said to her, Mother Rabia, I have built mosques, given to the poor, and recited countless prayers. Yet my heart feels empty. Rabia replied, You built mosques to be remembered, gave charity to be praised, prayed to feel righteous, and now you wonder why your heart is barren? Plant only for Allah, and the harvest will never fail. Lessons in few words. Rabia's wisdom often came in the form of brief, piercing sentences that could not be forgotten. Some of her most famous sayings include, on detachment. The one who knows Allah sees the world as dust. On prayer. I do not pray for paradise, nor to escape hell, I pray to be near him. On self-deception. You claim to love Allah, yet you disobey him. If your love were true, you would obey, for the lover obeys the beloved. On humility. Hide your good deeds as you hide your sins. The night of the moonlight. One night, a young girl from the neighborhood knocked on Rabia's door. She was in tears. My parents are gone, she sobbed. I am alone. Rabia took her inside and gave her water. Then she pointed to the moon shining through the window and said, See how the moon is alone in the night sky. Yet it is not lonely, because Allah watches over it. Be like the moon, glowing because he lights you. The girl would never forget those words. The refusal of the dunya. It was not just wealth Rabia refused. She refused even the smallest worldly attachments that could distract her from Allah. Once, a wealthy woman sent her a beautiful silk cloth. Rabia sent it back with a note. I have no use for it. My clothing is enough for the one who sees me. When asked why she rejected such gifts, she said, If the dunya world enters the heart through one thread, it will weave an entire net to catch you. The gentle rebuke. Even in correction, Rabia was gentle. A man once came to her boasting about how many nights he stayed awake in worship. Rabia listened, then softly said, It is not how long you stand in prayer, but how sincere your heart is when you bow. A single prostration with love is worth more than 1,000 without it. The man left with his pride humbled, and his heart lighter. The final days. As the years passed, Rabia al-Basri's once strong frame grew frail. Her body weakened, but her spirit, like a lamp protected from the wind, only burned brighter. The last winter. It was a cold winter in Basra. The streets were empty of children's laughter. The air was sharp with the smell of wood smoke. In her simple clay room, Rabia lay on a worn mat, her head resting on a brick covered with a piece of cloth. She could no longer walk far, but her tongue never tired of remembrance. Visitors came in fewer numbers now, fearing her illness. Those who did enter her home found her smiling gently, whispering, "Allahu ma'i," Allah is with me. A conversation with the grave. One evening, a close friend found her staring quietly at the corner of her room. "What are you thinking about, Mother Rabia?" she asked. Rabia replied, "I am thinking of the journey ahead. They will place me in the earth, and the earth will not harm me, for it will hold what loves Allah. But I fear the questions I will be asked, not from an angel, but from my own soul." The final night. The last night came softly, like the arrival of dawn. Rabia asked to be left alone with her Lord. Those near her door later reported hearing her voice in deep prayer. "O Allah, if I have worshipped you from fear of hell, burn me in hell. If I have worshipped you in hope of paradise, exclude me from it. But if I have worshipped you for your sake alone, then do not withhold from me your eternal beauty." Not long after, the prayers ceased. A silence filled the room. The morning. At dawn, her neighbors entered. They found her lying peacefully, a faint smile on her lips, as though she had seen something beautiful in her final breath. The news spread quickly through Basra. Rabia al-Basri had returned to her Lord. Her funeral. Crowds gathered, men and women alike. Scholars stood shoulder to shoulder with beggars. They spoke not of her fasting or her long nights of worship, but of her love, a love so pure that it made the dunya feel like a shadow. Some said the fragrance of musk lingered over her grave for days. Others swore they saw a soft light descend when she was lowered into the earth. Her legacy. Centuries have passed, yet her words still reach across time. They are whispered in mosques, are written in books of Sufism, are sung by poets who never met her, but feel they know her. In every age, her story calls out to those who want a faith without fear, without bargaining, a faith born from love alone.